Oh, we are back and ready to get towards our next match. It's going to be our match number 4 of the day, 4 of 5. We are going to start in this lower bracket. We have Seiko versus BoarControl. And once again, we do see BoarControl leaving Priest up. He is playing a slightly different lineup than what we've been used to seeing so far, which basically is just the inclusion of that rogue. Do you think this is valid? So, Saul, what do you make of this, leaving the Priest up?
I mean that's my question. Is I like Boar's lineup. I didn't delve too deep into what I would usually do with formulating lineups, and having opinions like this to talk about on broadcast of actually, factoring in what the meta game was going to be and then making my decisions based on that, because I didn't really know what the meta game was going to be. We're in a brand new expansion, so my sort of theoretical lineup construction was just based on decks that I had played a good amount of and had good success with, and decks that felt powerful. I think Boar's lineup fits really well into the decks that I have had success with and have felt powerful to me. It's just the question of whether they consistently perform against Priest, which I'm not entirely sure that they do. I do 100% appreciate that both his Rogue and his Mage, even though on the surface you might think that they just going to get outvalued, outgrinded by Priest. I've talked at length about how it's very, very possible with both those decks to go extremely long, and they absolutely can. Just really not so sure about whether Priest is just has to be the ban on all fronts right now. But if you're not bringing Warrior, that does become a much more appealing prospect for you, because I think if you are bringing Bomb Warrior and you leave up Priest, you're then leaving yourself with just way too many potentially bad lineups. Right. To have Bomb Warrior in your lineup. You kind of sort of self-target your own Bomb Warrior by leaving up Priest. So you just kind of have to ban it out. But with Boar's lineup, because he doesn't have that Warrior available to him after the ban phase, he's much more free to be able to take on Priest. But I still personally am terrified of Priest. I think that deck is immensely powerful. So clearly didn't work out for him too well. In the first series, he kind of got blown out, but I think a lot of the games that he played were non-games, and I think he'll be looking forward to getting his teeth sunk into a much more robust series this time around.
Yeah, and as a reminder, as you took a glance at how the group has progressed so far, all the players you see over the course of this weekend are 8 of these 16 that have done the best in the Swiss, or the top half of the Swiss that they played out on Wednesday and Thursday. So although we're saying, okay, Boar got destroyed in his first match, 0-3, is the ban wrong? Well, he beat the other half of the players that aren't here, right? So yeah, his lineup has performed to some level to get him in the top 8. Seiko, on the other hand, I love seeing what Seiko's going to submit every week. It was the same last season. When I was looking at the deck list, I almost first went to Seiko just to see, right, what's he doing this week? And so far he's planning to sweep away the competition with the brooms. So he is playing one in Druid and one in Priest, and I imagine that this broomstick's going to be seen played in many more decks in the near future, Soto, because every few turns I see across multiple different games, multiple different decks, I just think, oh, imagine if these things had Rush, and it would just be insane.
Yeah, I know Zanananan as well has been playing the Turtle Mage, the Potion Mage, the Nightblade Mage, whatever you want to know it as. That a couple of America's Grandmasters have brought, I believe. He's been adding Broom into that deck as well, saying that it belongs in there. He actually has been streaming with the title Broom belongs in every deck, which is a theory that a few people are starting to come around with. This really does look like it might end up being one of the sleeper cards of the set.
Yeah, we do see Seiko's Druid build, and again, this is just once more where Seiko just does his own thing. Yes, he's running the Broom, that is only one card though, but he's running Mount Seller and no Survival of the Fittest. So he's in that weird sort of third version of Druid that's not Malygos and not Survival. It's just Outseller with a couple of new cards, and again, I do just wonder how that is going to perform, because although there's the obvious power spikes of Guardian Animals and Bloom with Druid from this expansion, how you build the rest of that I think is key. And honestly, I think I'm going to be on board with you in my prediction that it's actually going to get thinned down quite a lot from what we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, we'll wait and see, but really looking forward to this opening matchup, because I know Boar has been streaming a ton of this Tempo Mage deck. I think he's very, very adept at it, so looking forward to seeing if he can put in a much better showing than we've been seeing from some of the players here. By which I mean I don't necessarily think players were at fault for some of the games that we've seen. I think we have just seen some pretty rotten pan-outs in a lot of games, lots of Sorcerer's Apprentices being buried, which is not to say that the deck cannot win without Sorcerer's Apprentice, but if you miss the Sorcerer's Apprentice and you miss all the card draw to then go digging for other options to stall you until you can get to a powerful turn, yeah, you're going to struggle because your deck is extremely low value if you can't string combinations of cards together, and that's why the card draw does become particularly important to be able to make sure you have access to a large hand to be able to have those big pop-off combos.
Yeah, the deck is naturally volatile, right? Like that's the way it is, in both a good way and a bad way, right? You know, you can have those explosively powerful turns, or you can completely whiff. I am looking forward to seeing Seiko's Priest again. We were joking about it beforehand when we saw the first match bans of double Priest. We were like, that's great. And we were like, it's fine if one Priest is up. The Priest mirrors can get a bit savage, but if just one player has Priest, then it's going to be looking good. And Seiko, if you remember, in Season 1 earlier this year, was also one of the first players to start bringing Priest to Grandmasters. So again, whenever Seiko brings something just a little bit spicy or Priest specifically, I'm always excited to see how he does. But the loser of this match will be done for the weekend, and not in a good way. They do get the good points for top 8, of course, but it does mean they go out and don't get to play on Sunday in that top 4 spot. But the winner will go on to face Swids. There you go. Thank you for the breakdown. And these points are based on where the players finish this week. And then this happens 3 times in total. And the top point earners go into Division A. And then the lower half go into Division B. And as we saw, though, unfortunately last season, no one is safe regardless of what division you're in, because we saw, our beloved Hunter Race actually get relegated from being in Division A.
Yeah, he's all right. He's having a great time, though, waking up early, streaming for a few hours in the morning. He seems to be enjoying Hearthstone still at this point, so that's great to see. But yeah, obviously, Hunter Ace was kind of the sacrifice we needed so that no one who ends up in Division A this season is going to be resting on their laurels. No one's going to feel complacent and that, their GM future is secure just because they've made that Division A. You can still very much get relegated from that Division A. As unlikely as it is, it's already happened once. So points being very crucial to be gathered here. You can see all of the players that have already made it to this point have already got 3 points to their name by being in that 7th to 8th place. But it does start to increase very, very rapidly up towards those 5, 6, 8 points if you can make it through to Sunday.
Yeah, the big deal for these players is the 4 that make it through to Sunday are so much safer going into the next couple of weeks, because from roughly what we saw last season, if you do well one week and do okay for the next 2, i.e. don't go 13th, 16th, then you're looking pretty great for Division A if you can say top 4 just 1 week. But as you can see there, the overall layout of Grandmasters, it is the same as last season, with just a couple of small tweaks. Of the final week of Swiss is going to be Specialist and not the full class format we had last season. But also, somewhere in the middle there, we're going to have a Masters Tour sort of, which might also shake up the meta for Grandmasters as a knock-on effect.
Yeah, for sure. I think there being a Masters Tour in the middle of the season is going to be a little interesting twist on things. Of course, the Masters Tour has now kind of reset to an extent, with a slightly different twist on the rulings, where it's now a rolling 6 event sample that gives you the prize money to be able to get into Grandmasters. But obviously, we've had our prior wave of qualifications that saw the likes of Blizer and A-Rock and Warmer be found in new Grandmasters in Europe. So now there's still plenty to fight for these players to get to this point. But these are the players who are already the minted Grandmasters, and they have the slightly simpler equation on their hands of just trying to fight for that position in Division A to give themselves maximum security, as we were discussing.
Yeah, and just a final note as well, before we get into the game, of course, is we are slowly getting to that point, Saul, where we're going to have veterans of Grandmasters, right?
Yeah,
this is season. We had 2 seasons last time. This is the second season this year. So after this season, there's going to be another 3 relegations, another 3 promotions, and suddenly we're going to start saying, well, yeah, there's only, I don't know, potentially 5 or 6 players that started in Grandmasters still left. And that's going to get very, very interesting. We might get to the point where there's literally 1 or 2 originals still in their division or their region, I guess. And that's going to get quite exciting. Already we've seen some big names get relegated, some new and upcoming names such as Blizer coming in. And you've got to think, at least judging off the last year or so, Blizer ain't going anywhere anytime soon based on his performance. So it's just kind of cool that now that Grandmasters is coming up to, a couple of years-ish old, we're going to start to see some of these a bit more legacy form out of this this tournament series. But let's get straight into it. Game number 1 between these two players. Loser is done for the weekend. The winner continues on with a chance at top 4. Seiko on the top on that Druid. BoarControl on the bottom on the Mage. We are good to go, and I spot a Sorcerer's Apprentice Subtle.
Ooh! Sorcerer's Apprentice and card draw in the opener here for BoarControl. Exactly all the things I've been saying that the other players have been missing. Fantastic looking opener here for Boar. It's like he is going to greed the Cram Session, which is a pretty good decision to be made against Druid most of the time. Unlikely that they have the removal for your early minions, and even if they do, if they're wasting their early turns on playing removal cards on your minions as opposed to ramping and doing broken things, that kind of makes you happy anyway.
Well, here's question number 1, isn't it? There is Crystal Power for the Solarian. There's Wild Growth, but there's also just Overgrowth with the Innovate. What do you make of this? How do you even break this turn down? So
you can also, if you Wild Growth Innovate Crystal Power, you still end up Guardian Animals on the same turn, right? Like holding the Innovate doesn't give you Guardian Animals a turn sooner. Holding the Innovate doesn't really do anything for you after you've played your Overgrowth. So maybe that's the best of both worlds play. If you ramp and deal with the Solarian Prime to shut off the Cram Session value, reduce a little bit of damage at the same time. Because yeah, even this play, like this only ramps him to 6, right? Like he's still playing Guardian Animals on the same turn, even with this play.
This does, you could argue that this allows him to be more flexible, and he can also go for Lake Thrasher into Crystal Power this turn, and then play Guardian Animals without having to play Wild Growth and use that as card draw later. So it did allow him, you could say, a level of flexibility. It's just whether that is actually worth it is the question, and kind of tough to break down, obviously, based off his opponent's turn. But so far, BoarControl has put on a fairly aggressive opening, with only turn 3 here, having the board and all the spell damage in the world. And also now, suddenly, Sorcerer's Apprentice, 3 1-cost spells, a coin, and Shambhala. So means that maybe BoarControl can pop off very early in this game.
Yeah, and if he's going to spend this turn Wild Growthing and Crystal Powering the Solarian Prime, isn't my line just better? Like, the same thing happens, but you take 3 less damage, and your opponent draws less cards from Cram Session, and you play Guardian Animals on the same turn.
I think I prefer our line. So, but I do agree. Yeah, I do agree. Okay. If the outcome is the same, except you took more damage.
Well, I think like more crucial than the damage is the extra card that he drew by you leaving a spell damage minion on the board. I think that's the most important thing to focus on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Are you surprised at all BoarControl went for that the card draw instead of going off with Shambhala? Oh, I guess he would have had to target his own. Yeah, he would have had to target his own stuff as well, right? That wouldn't have quite worked out so well.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about in the previous meta about Gladebound tennis. I think this is an incredibly tennis-heavy meta, which I guess the easy way to say this is it's a swing turn meta. So Boar there could have developed ahead of the game and potentially got some powerful threats in play, but then Seiko gets a swing turn. Guardian Animals, boom, rush, kill all your stuff. Whereas if Boar waits for the Guardian Animals to come down and then reacts with some of his powerful things while clearing the board away, he gets a more powerful swing turn himself that way.
What to do?
Yeah, it does work out that he's going to get the better end of the stick, right? If he can respond. And also, looking at this hand from Seiko, he does have Mount Seller and a couple of spells, but BoarControl just has a full hand, and he could even wait, do a slower turn this turn, I'll say, and save the coin for Solarian next turn. If he feels he might need it to say, like you said with the tennis, if it's expecting a strong turn or strong response from Seiko, maybe coin out Solarian just gets the job done.
So definition of a slow turn this turn. Because he can do some pretty insane things without using the coin this turn.
Yeah. That's my definition. Using the coin versus not. Okay. Well, that's done.
Sure. Because even without using the coin, he had access to Shambhala Sorcerer's Apprentice all of the
Go.
Ray of Frosts and all of the magic tricks, and upwards of 2 or 3 5/5s coming out into play. So.
It's going to heal up his Thresher, looking good. The Ironbarks as well are going to be able to give it even more health. I'd even consider Ironbarking. It's a tough call, right? Because the minions he's got, I was thinking, oh, you could Ironbark the Mount Seller to have more health versus, say, Brain Freeze and Ray of Frosts. But if he Ironbarks it now, it's very, very, very likely that the 3/4 can just attack it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up taking more damage. I don't know, it's a tough call. Griffin? Oh, okay. Dr. Bear.
Is it cold in here? Or is it just me?
I say, man, this Battlegrounds board is just crying out for a strong shell scavenger right now.
So BoarControl choosing to not go for the Solarian as a, I'm not going to say desperation play, but for the big play to try and, say, clear the board or do something a bit nutty. He's going to go for the build his own board play, and he does get the Nova as well, which is huge.
Yeah, and what's really cool here is, like, Boar milked my concept a turn even further than what I was talking about. You know, I kind of would have pushed in on the previous turn. When I was talking about how you need to create swing turns, I would have gone, okay, I'll wait for his Guardian Animals. Boom, there's his Guardian Animals. Okay, right, I'm going in this turn, and I was going to do this kind of turn, but less impressive. Not quite as good as this, because mana availabilities and evocation, all that kind of stuff. Or milked it even one turn further and has got an enormous payoff now because of it.
Also, so I will say that evocation, probably the best evocation we've seen today.
Yes.
A ton of cheap spells to be able to combo with, as opposed to, you know, the odd Flame Strike box or whatever. So that definitely helped, combined with everything you were just breaking down for us for BoarControl's battle plan, so to speak. And he still has the Prime.
But I do want to say, like, that was probably above average as an evocation, but I think that trends closer to my experience of the average than the really bad ones that we've been seeing for most of the day. Boar just throws up his hands and like, yep, okay, that's my board. That's basically what I've got this game.
I supply only the finest creatures.
Also, I don't know about you, but I love the Studies cards, this expansion.
Yeah,
I like
really
them way more. I think I just didn't appreciate them in like the previews, but it's not just the 1-mana cards that discover stuff. It's kind of cool, but the way you can utilize the reduction is actually pretty sweet because you can plan around it. Because I think I might have thought it's like for that turn, but it's not. It's just your next card, your next spell, your next whatever. And that really adds an extra level of depth, right, to how you can utilize those cards.
And beyond even that, this doesn't apply to the Druid one because the Druid one affects spells. But, like, take the Mage one, for example. You can discount the same spell damage minion by 2 by casting 2 of them, and then they stack. And you get, you could, for example, just make a Solarian Prime cost 5 by stacking 2 of the effects on top of each other and not playing any other spell damage minions. Same with the dragons in Priest, for example.
I'm waiting for Malygos Mage. It's going to happen, right? Because you just have Malygos, you play 2, make it 7 mana, and then you can probably just kill someone. I'm waiting for it. One day.
Yeah, and you play that cheap Malygos with a Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then you can... Yeah.
Lethal.
Yeah. That actually might work. I'm pretty sure I could win a game of Hearthstone with that deck. I might do that tonight.
Wow, that looks so crazy, doesn't it? There was 20 damage BoarControl could aim face to an opponent that's on 24, but he just doesn't quite have the finisher. Would you have gone all face and then just primed for the win?
I think he's very... I think he's in a very comfortable position if he just trades down his board. I think his board is still enormous after these trades happen. Trade, you play the secret, the Firebrand takes care of the last 4 that you need. Still threatening lethal on the following turn. You still have Solarian Prime to follow that up if you absolutely need to. You do have to be just a little bit nervous about the fact that Dr. Broom is present in Seiko's deck because, regular Druid would not have a way back into this game from this position. However, rushing
curious.
cleave is an enormous effect to have on a minion.
Trade's getting low.
Oh, okay. It's probably more annoying for ball control than than anything else. As the spell burst deals 2 damage to all of the minions. Yeah, this Lake Thrasher, and again, you just... Every time I see Broom played, I think it's just the best card in the deck.
Yeah, Born nodding. He knows he's getting swept up right now.
Sands of time run
I
low.
wonder how long we can stretch out these broomstick words.
Oh, I will grind this comparison into dust, Rave. He's just got nothing! He's gone silent! He's got nothing!
Because I know there's more to come, that's why. I'm mentally, like, saving myself. So Iron Prime going to come down here from BoarControl. He does need something pretty solid to try and end this game. Okay, well, that's it. I was literally about to say probably some generation, some value, some playables would be really, really good. And, hey, he got him. Seems good.
That's esports, folks.
Again, I would have just jammed the second Prime already, man.
I mean, he might still.
Like, I believe. Apexis Blast has to be a consideration here, is just damage.
It deals 6, yeah.
Again,
Unlikely
just
to continue to deal 6, but I guess he has a 1-mana spell damage minion in his hand
Yeah.
that pretty much always deals 6, yeah.
And just a reminder as well that Seiko is not running the survival of the fittest, so he's not going to make some giant minion taunts in the way. He can't do that. He's not running that package. It really is just Mount Seller and Guardian Animals, along with Ysera, as you can see now, of course. But that's it. There's no ultra big payoff turns like you get in Malygos Druid or like you get in the Survival of the Fittest Druid with Kael'thas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just it's just not good enough.
I think
I'll
Seiko
say,
also knows it's not good enough, just based on the contents of Board's hand. He knows there's like a 1-cost Firebrand in there. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure he knows he's just dead on board with that play, so he's just going to give it up. And that is going to be 1-0 up to BoarControl. Already got infinitely more games on the board this series than he did in the last one, so he's off to a flying start.
Yeah, I think right then we could see that, or at least I feel like we could see that BoarControl is quite comfortable with the mage deck. I'm not saying, he knows the ins and outs, he plays it optimally all the time, but you can see he's played a lot of it because I think just the macro strategy was there, right? As you said, I think a lot of players would just pop off early and just say, okay, mage, do stuff, go. But I think the timing of his big turns was quite well done there, and you can see the effect. He had answers to the plays from Druid that a lot of players don't have answers to, whether it's on ladder or in Grandmasters, of course.
Yeah, so I think I would have gone off a turn earlier with the Shenvala, and I think I would have still won that game with the pan out that happened. But I think I opened myself up to lose to things like Diving Griffins coming off the Mount Seller, to the hand being Bog Beams alongside the Mount Seller to actually create a swing turn, then coming back the other way. Boar waiting one additional turn, then completely removes that swing turn from the equation. And means that, he essentially gets to neuter 2 power turns from the Druid in one go, as opposed to just reacting to the first one. So I really, really like the additional turn hold for Boar. I think that was really, really smart, and feel like I'm learning something, so that's great.
Yep, well, Mage was looking pretty good for BoarControl, unlike a little bit earlier. We're going to have to see if his Rogue can get the job done, but we are going to go to a quick break while we set up our next game. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Hail to thee, O Scholomance, the magic school of your legacy of glory shines. May thee stand forevermore. The place where magic bends to your will, but you'll have to study hard. So many clubs and cults.
Excuse me, I misspoke.
Take your pick out in the yard.
kidding, of course.
Dear Magic, Scooby dolls are staying right and true. All soloists, we love you. Hey, hey, USA!
We are back and ready to continue the series between BoarControl and Seiko. BoarControl taking the win with that mage. Just got his rogue and his druid left over. And again, just glancing at the list, I'm excited to see more of this rogue, but BoarControl is playing the druid list I'm personally leaning towards with this survival of the fittest build. But for me, Saul, I just want to see this rogue perform, because when you just look at the list, it's hard to understand how, right? Just from looking at it.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, people who haven't watched Board's stream or, aren't familiar with the deck's origins in China or haven't seen any of the other streamers that have been playing it play this deck, like if this deck is new to you and then you saw the list and you saw Board's performance with it in the first series, you might have written it off already as just this complete, trash failed aggro deck. And that could not be further from the truth. It's not an aggro deck and it's absolutely not trash. It's a really, really powerful deck. So I would love to see Boar put in a showing with it, but he has chosen to go for the Druid here, so we're just going to see the reverse of the matchup that we saw last time around. Boar with none of that spicy tech, though. He has no broom of his own.
Yeah, but Seiko does have the Sorcerer's Apprentice available to him, so again, we get to keep a close eye on when and how he's going to decide to use this. I imagine the Wand Thief, along with the studies, looks pretty solid for this turn to then help give him a direction for the next few turns as well. Especially if you can get a Solarian Prime to help out, maybe even that turn as well. That's what's kind of cool with this, is you can play the studies, see what you get, and if you want to play a Prime or another, lab partner, then fine. If not, one Thief is there to then combo with and generate you another spell. But instead, Seiko is going crazy.
He's just going in.
Mana Reservoir, let's go.
I mean, if his plan is play minions and hit the opponent with them, then Ogre Magi was the choice there. It was the biggest thing he could play on curve next turn. Oh, Crystal Power off the top for Boar, though, for the immediate punish. Seiko took risk. It's something that I'm not going to criticize too heavily against Druid. I think it's certainly a risk that you can take with certain hands, but I don't necessarily see what the payoff was for Seiko in hand right now for making that play. It's not like he got rewarded for a Sorcerer's Apprentice sticking too much.
Right. It's a tough one, isn't it? And also, BoarControl only playing the one Crystal Power, but did have double Bog Beam as options as well. And for turn 3, arguably the Ghidra too, which would have killed it off. So there were ways for it to die. But I always respect a quick Sorcerer's Apprentice play. But for now, Seiko is going to have to go back to the drawing board and maybe hope this Jandis can get worked on instead.
Ooh. This Druid hand is not it.
Are you saying Beast Druid just as a curve card play? Is not a good deck.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Lightning Bloom off the top next turn, though, does solve a lot of problems.
There is 1 Thresher and 2 Twilight Runners left from the Guardian Animals right now.
Correct, yeah.
As Boar is only running 1 Teacher's Pet.
Yikes.
Yep. That looks like a Raven play if I ever saw one. They're my kind of outcomes. Oh, there's a runner.
Just play and cross your fingers that there's no punish, but the punish is absolutely there.
Yeah, I was going to say, this might look like a strange play. Like, oh wait, why not play a taunt against all this aggression? Well, Boar wants to draw cards to completely unlock his hand, right? Yeah. So drawing the taunt, playing the taunt, all it does is you take a bit less damage 1 turn, and then you randomly on like 6 mana the turn after, which isn't what he's after. He needs ramp to play that Guardian Animals, but this is all going from bad to worse. BoarControl Seiko is piling on the pressure right now.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Boar, this is shaping up to be another one of those non-games that we saw him have in the previous series. Now Overgrowth just much too late, it looks like, to have a significant impact on this game. He gets the ramp on the exact turn where he's able to play Guardian Animals the next turn anyway, so the Overgrowth is having almost 0 impact on the conditions of the game.
Yeah, and although this is just the one game we're in right now, it just you look at the deck, right, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 5-drops. The 2 Guardian Animals, Kael'thas, 2 Overflow, Ysera, and 2 Survival of the Fittest. With a deck like this, you really need to draw it in the right order, because if not, you are going to be passing a lot of turns in a row.
Second Firebrand off the top allows Seiko to push significantly more damage this turn. Just drop the Firebrand, rip the AI.
You get burned.
Yeah, I was looking at if it's ever worth 2 AI, just to see what you get, but I don't think a card, the draw's ever going to be more playable than 4 damage, right? So this just looks good. And you get the minion on board, of course.
Yeah, I think the only card that could have been debatably stronger there would be Conjurer's Calling, but Conjurer's Calling wouldn't be playable
right
anyway with 6 mana, so seems fine.
Finally, Boar gets to play Hearthstone. And seems good. Are you a fan of these Anubisaths? Because I know not everyone's playing them.
I think you have to play them in the survival list. I think if you start cutting survival, sure, they get kind of trash, but like it allows you to actually play Survival of the Fittest from hand for 10 mana sometimes, right? Which is kind of insane. If you don't necessarily hit the Kael'thas with it, then I think the Anubisaths are a pretty good insurance policy. 0 mana 7/9 taunts, pretty strong.
Yep, and they're definitely paying off for BoarControl now to just have an even more powerful turn if he wants it. To just go super wide, because again, there aren't too many punishes, and we might just about see BoarControl survive here, and maybe even fight back, as suddenly we're in Druid territory once we're in 7 mana and above.
Yeah, we certainly are. And now, suddenly, the lack of that Sorcerer's Apprentice might just be coming back to bite Seiko, because there is an Evocation, there is Ray of Frost, there is Mana Cyclone in hand. There is no real way, without the discount, without the mana cheat of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, there's no real way to turn that into a super powerful turn. Unless you hit the absolute nuts of the Evocation, of course. That is very possible.
Do you think it's ever like Ray Mana Cyclone this turn and try and just wait 1 more turn for the Evocation?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'd rather go Evocation. Right, if the Mana Cyclone play, like you're just adding extra steps to get an Evocation, right? Like you might as well just cast the Evocation in that scenario.
Yeah, I was thinking whether the extra mana helped. It probably doesn't. 7 to 8. Let's get that Cone of Cold though. He can play if he wants it.
Ray on the left, Cone of Cold on the right. No, he's actually not. He's going to blow straight past the Cone of Cold. He is going to go for the Mana Cyclone this turn. Seems fine.
He only really takes 3 extra damage, right? And the damage on the minions itself doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
Right, what can we potion, Sol?
Not again!
Ugh. Problem now for BoarControl. These overgrowths aren't even quite ready to be used as card draw yet, right? Pretty much just going to be Ysera and then overgrowth, probably for the double card draw next turn. Or the turn after, should I say.
Right.
Ooh. Flame Strike into Devolving?
It's
Probably
just not that good.
No.
Like, the Anubisath defenders survive as 3/1s, and then you start devolving them into 4-drops, you know? Like, it's just not that powerful.
I wonder.
Has to devolve first, and then hope the Flame Strike can clear up afterwards. It doesn't kill 3/8s. Okay. It's actually not a bad outcome, all things considered. Bad that he gets to trade the 2/2 after the fact.
And only
Quite
a 3-attack minion. Cycles on 29. Like, he is relatively safe in the short term.
Yeah. But his hand is extremely out of value. Does have the Arcane Intellect. Deep Freeze is really not as impressive as he would like it to be against the boards that BoarControl is going to start developing in the near future. But that second Mana Cyclone certainly will help. Imagine with the help of Arcane Intellect, he'll be able to piece together a pretty powerful turn, that Mana Cyclone. And that's if his Arcane Intellect does not find himself a Mana Giant to go with that Conjurer's Calling.
And double Nature Studies for BoarControl, though, can open up a wealth of options.
Yeah.
Regardless of it just reducing the next cards down, but just all the options you can get. Even Worthy Expedition there to open it up. He can Starfire one of these minions and go with a hero power if he really wants.
Oh, the Nourish! Nourish is money.
Yeah, survival.
Nourish was not money.
He got him an overflow.
6 portals in 19 cards when he played the Nourish. So actually, yeah, he's below 1 in 3 to draw a dragon. Actually wasn't as likely as I was expecting it to be. He's drawn very few cards this game so far.
He has an option here, I was just going to mention, of doing this, but this also means he is unlikely to be able to play Survival of the Fittest next turn. So there is a certain level of sacrifice, but it could pay off. It didn't, but it could have.
Well, it still might. He, tops the other Lightning Bloom next turn? He's back in business?
Wait.
Is he?
No. He's
No,
overloaded.
no, he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's 2 turns away in which you're just going to overflow next turn anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, more than likely anyway.
Yep.
Oh! Potion! Oh wait, no! He'll make giant birds! Survival of the Fittest!
Yeah, exactly. That's not good. Yeah, but if you look at Boar's face right now, I think he's considering the implications himself as to whether that is a bad thing or not to have happened to it.
Either way, it's funny, and I'm sure we can agree
It is
on
funny.
that.
It's indisputably funny.
Overflow number 2. I think he has to overflow.
One thing's for sure.
Right? He has to trade
There's one
first,
thing
though.
I am sure about. He doesn't want to kill them now before this overflow.
And why is that?
Because he doesn't want to specifically draw 1/1s right now because he's not
Sure.
casting Survival of the Fittest yet, so he just doesn't want those cards in his hand. He wants to draw more powerful things to react right now. He wants to draw Dream Portals right now.
Well, That he did.
He also didn't need to trade before he overflows, right? Because he was attacking with a poisonous minion?
I thought he was going to trade with the Ysera.
Oh, okay.
Just to get the heal. You know, just a small, like, get the heal back up. But
Sure.
I guess this is fine, like you said. For the reasons you just pointed out, this ordering doesn't matter for the 4 damage
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the Ysera, right? Especially because he did so well with the portals.
Yeah, I'm sure there is someone watching like order low, missed response, missed health on his Ysera, but this is absolutely deliberate. He wanted to pop off as hard as possible that turn, did not want to draw the 1/1 Albatrosses before he got this enormous board state on the other side.
I'm sure there's people saying stuff about order before we even get into a game, honestly, so also that's
probably
always,
true,
always
yeah.
a given.
Yeah. Might be right.
Although now...
So, Kalikos plus Kael'thas? Eh?
Kalithas? I'm just wondering that this is one of those dicey moments where Druid has a full board of minions and Mage has freeze. So these are the moments where you can make your opponent basically pass a few turns if you get the right freezes. So Seiko, although it's looking rough, is not out of it yet.
No, for sure. If Boar can retain that last board space, if he does not draw, he has 1 portal remaining in his deck, so if he doesn't draw it and fill up that last board space, he does have Speaker that can come back the other way and be able to take care of a lot of this. Be able to make a huge Speaker Gidra and be able to clear up a lot of the board state.
He's also got to survive first, right?
Weirdly enough, his first spell being free actually gets weird with the Speaker Gidra interaction. I have to play some kind of spell first, then Gidra, then Guardian Animals, something along those lines to get it huge.
But that also won't work because Guardian will be 0, right? With KT?
No, if you play one spell, then play the Speaker, then play a big spell. That works, right?
Right, but he won't have the mana then, right? That's 13 mana.
What? His first spell was free for Kalikos.
Oh,
You then
sorry,
play-
the first spell being... Right.
You then play Speaker, you then play a big spell. That costs you 10 mana, and then that makes your next spell free. It's all irrelevant because he doesn't have to make that play. He's not under enough pressure to demand his Speaker Gidra comes down in this position. Wait. The second Innovate Starfire this is lethal, isn't it? Isn't this lethal? Second Innovate Starfire? Am I crazy? He's already cast 1 spell, hasn't he?
Yes.
Doesn't the Innovate make the Starfire free?
Yes.
So this is just lethal.
I believe so, yeah, because his Survival of the Fittest was free, correct?
Yeah.
And then you can see the excess mana in the history bar.
Yeah.
Innovate is 2.
So Innovate Starfire is lethal.
Yeah.
Oh, boar!
Oh, BoarControl.
Someday I'll be just like
Might feel that one in your stream tomorrow. Now, the important part, right at this moment in time, is he going to be punished for this miss?
Did he just realize? Okay.
Well, that's a taunt. No,
It's a big
freeze.
taunt.
1 freeze, 1 poly.
Yeah.
Just doesn't look like enough, though, does it?
Right. He needs... I've been talking about Tyrallion the Tenured quite a lot. He needed about 6 of them that turn somehow. I don't quite know how that was possible.
What to do?
It's like, what do I even polymorph? There's a 16-16 that death rattles into another big thing. There's a Kaligos, there's a Kael'thas.
Okay.
Well, there's a couple more taunts, though. I'm going to choose to believe with Gidra in hand this is just game.
Just literally has to be. I refuse to believe this isn't lethal.
Boop, boop.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, it
it's-
just is 'cause-
It's giga lethal.
Yeah.
Like, Gidra kills the 2 taunts, you can smash 2 of your huge minions into Alakir, and it's still lethal. Like, I stopped looking at that point because that's so inefficient and it's still lethal that anything you do is lethal this turn.
I was going to say, I just went to the straightforward one that we're seeing, which is Hero Power, Starfire, Gidra, pop, go. Wow, so, BoarControl. Well, looks like he had a bit of a misstep, getting lethal a little bit later than maybe he should have. It did not matter with the end result as he goes 2-0 up in the series. You see BoarControl, maybe a shake of the head, maybe the acknowledgement. We'll have to find out, obviously, after the match. Maybe we'll talk about it. But most importantly, he does get the win. And the Druid looking pretty solid once again. Although, again, Seiko did make a good run of it. But maybe the Sorcerer's Apprentice was just a little bit too early to really open up the game.
Yeah, it is an incredibly impactful card. I do admit that is a play I have made against Druid. But it's a play I've made when I have, like, Shemvala in my hand, right? So I just say, okay, I'll try and win the game right now. Sorcerer's Apprentice. If you don't have the answer, I'm playing Shemvala, Magic Trick, Rare Frost next turn, and the game ends. But, like, Seiko's hand just didn't really have a payoff for his Sorcerer sticking, so I'm not necessarily sure of his mentality behind why he really felt like he needed an Apprentice in play that turn. And it certainly meant his hand suffered on one particular turn where his hand was Evocation, Ray of Frost, Mana Cyclone, I believe, and he then didn't have a Sorcerer's Apprentice to go alongside all that. Whether or not it would have been enough to counteract some of the craziness that Boar was doing, I don't know. But honestly, even with all that craziness, Seiko wasn't that far off that game, so maybe it would have done.
Yeah, and then the big thing here now is we are going to be taking a look at this BoarControl rogue here, which is this crazy secret rogue is what we're going for right now. And what worries me, Sottle, is if this lines up against Priest, how comfortable do we need to get? Because that's going to be... Okay, it's Mage. That's going to be a lot of, you take my cards, I'll take yours. And then that may just never end. But at least for now, we can maybe touch on that later if required. But for now, it's going to be the Rogue versus the Mage. So probably the 2 decks in the meta that are as similar can be is they both try and do the heavy generation and the flexible win conditions. Do you have much experience in this matchup? Because I know you've played a good chunk of both of these decks.
I have. I played less of the Rogue and I didn't run into too much Mage when I was doing so, but I have played a good chunk of it from the Mage side. And outside of Plagiarize, which is a nightmare, and I wake up in a cold sweat. That's not true. There's nothing about my sweat that is cold in the current climate in the UK. I wake up in an incredibly hot sweat. Actually having nightmares about Plagiarize in this matchup because there is just nothing good you can do against it with Mage. And I think that card was something that I immediately dismissed as complete garbage when it was revealed, and it turns out it's ridiculously frustrating to play against for a lot of decks.
Right. And how realistic is it to give, like, do the one card play, right? Just play something and then pass? Yeah,
like, that thought obviously occurs to you, but then you get into a game, you're like, okay, they've played their secret, and then, so your response is, my turn is going to be trash, like, I'm going to do nothing good in order to not give my opponent Plagiarize. Well, the problem with that is that your turn was then trash, right? Like, it just doesn't, help.
They still get a card.
They still get a card, yeah. The fact that you can't just pass, you can't just call out that it's Plagiarize and hit end turn, like, that would actually be something that would make the card a lot worse, I think, if you could just call it out and say, no, you get nothing. But it does not proc until they get at least one card off it. So it just stays there as a persistent problem for the entire game that you have to deal with.
Which, as you can see as well, if you want to do like a weird stall plan, well, then it's just there for Blackjack Stunner.
Yeah.
Great. You know, if you want to, it's like the weird play around thing. If you play around something too much, you're just giving your opponent further value from it when it shouldn't exist.
But yeah, there's a lot of intricacies in this matchup. I was gonna say, outside of that Plagiarize interaction, I do feel pretty comfortable from the Mage side. I think Plagiarize is just the hardest card to navigate. Everything else you're pretty comfortable against, because you don't really have Blackjack Stunner value to give to the opponent, for example. It's not like a lot of decks that can have blowouts with Blackjack Stunner. Your only real big sappable minion costs 0 by the time you play it anyway, so who cares? And then on the other hand, their big threats, the Questing Adventurers, the Edwin Van Cleefs, that are going to come down at some point, you either play Devolving Missiles in your deck or have infinite ways to generate Devolving Missiles in your deck. And if you don't have those cards, you have Ray of Frost and potentially generated Frost Novas and Blizzards to stall Link until you can get to those cards. So overall, I feel pretty comfortable in this matchup from the Mage side, but it took a lot of repetition, even from the Mage side, to even feel slightly comfortable, because I think the matchup is very, very intricate and extremely easy to mess up and outrageously punishing if you do so.
Yeah, and a really interesting pick there from BoarControl. Had the option of Arcane Intellect, Yogg-Box, or Power of Creation, and a part of me feels like he picked the third one, if that makes sense. Although, again, I'll confess I've not got tons of experience with this deck, the Rogue, but I did wonder, is Arcane Intellect not needed because of the amount of generation you have?
Pretty much, yeah. I think
okay.
Between the card generation and Secret Passage, there is such thing as drawing too many cards in this deck, because it's hard to process, but when you play Secret Passage, you do actually draw those cards a lot of the time, and they're gone from your deck, right? Because you draw them, you play them, and then less cards shuffle back into your deck than were in there to begin with. So if you start drawing too many cards and then play 2 Secret Passages, you can actually fatigue yourself incredibly quickly if you start, generating card draw from other cards as well. So generally, I think that's something that's worth avoiding if there's another good option there, which Power of Creation absolutely was.
Yep. I think we're about to see the turn. Are you surprised, actually? Van Cleef coming down there from BoarControl as an 8/8 did have the option of playing Vendetta, just to make it that little bit bigger. But is 8/8, is it just that number that's just enough versus Mage?
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's big enough to be game-winning and game-ending if it sticks, and if it dies, it's rarely dying to straight-up damage, right? Like, it dies to... it either gets frozen, in which case, who cares how big it is, or it gets devolved, in which case, who cares how big it is, right? So I think it's pretty reasonable. It just so happens that this is the perfect punish for it just being a little bit smaller here. The 4 damage Brain Freeze, and the... although, actually, with the spell damage, this would have done 10 anyway. Yeah.
And at least now there is a very clear, straightforward way for BoarControl to kill off this Apprentice. And that is a thing in this matchup, or against Mage in general. If you get pushed by an Apprentice, at least if you can kill it and not be dead, you tick that off, right? Okay, 1 Apprentice gone. Like, there's only 1 more left.
Yeah.
Give me a quest.
And it was good he kept hold of Vendetta, because otherwise this Apprentice will be quite protected right now behind those taunts.
Yeah, that's the other factor of, A, it doesn't really matter whether your Edwin is huge or huger. B, there are key threats. I talk about there aren't really being key threats to Blackjack Stunner. There are key threats to Vendetta in the deck, for sure. Sorcerer's Apprentice being absolutely one of them if you don't have access to a backstab.
Now there's a really interesting selection of cards in Seiko's hand, in that he has Blizzard, Flame Strike, Observer, and with the help of the Icicle, he's almost Freeze Mage now again, right? Of just having actual AoE and freezing and clearing ability, along with the sprinkling of spell damage minions with those 2 primes. This is looking like a pretty solid set of tools to deal with specifically this Rogue deck, or at least the initial threats from this Rogue deck.
Is that Ray of Frost draw just the nuts? I think it is, right?
What to do?
I think he just wishes he had another Cyclone or something.
I mean, he has Icicle, which is why it's just so insane here. So it deals 0, freezes it, then it deals 4, then your Icicle deals 3, and then you just have to trade the 1/1 in while drawing an additional card, retain all of your spell damage minions in play. Seems pretty freaking strong to me. Oh, sorry, it deals 4, yeah. Yeah, so you don't even need to trade the 1/1.
The Brain Freeze is an option.
Arcane Explosion's kind of legit in this matchup, honestly, but wow, we actually... I was about to finish that sentence with, oh, but you probably can't pass Brain Freeze because it's kind of a premium card, but I'm both surprised and not surprised by this pick. I actually think it's a very legitimate card in the matchup, but at the same time, Brain Freeze is Brain Freeze. It's just a good card,
Sottle's Schrodinger's surprise.
Yeah.
Well, this is a point as well. Once you get past the initial, okay, the deck does big Van Cleef and big questings. After that, the deck just does stuff, right? Just a lot of stuff that splurges out onto the board. So again, you know, that's the point, right? Arcane Missiles, the Flame Strike, the Blizzard. I feel like Seiko can maybe not ever do this, but get close to the whole, well, I'll just kill everything you make. That might not work just because of the nature of how much stuff this deck can make, but I guess kill the relevant threats, or at least a few waves of board pressure.
Pretty sure this turn's impossible. I have absolutely no idea. Was it questing prep plagiarize Ferrocat, or was it this? Like, I'm so unclear. I genuinely don't know.
Well, the lackeys can work out pretty well for him if he wants to use them. Or do you think now BoarControl has to save the lackeys for a questing?
Well, the questing, he doesn't have the questing, right? That's the problem.
I meant for next turn.
He doesn't have the questing. That's going back in the deck.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, I thought the question was kept.
Yeah.
Oh, keeping track of these.
Hey, there's no time off when you're casting Secret Passage, right?
I know. I apologize. I think I blinked.
Can't be doing that.
I won't
Can't
do
be
it
doing
again.
that, Raven.
I know, won't do that one again. Sorry. Winged Guardian is okay, though. I think it's something that can help fight back.
Yeah, agreed. Pretty decent pull. And this is what I was talking about, right? Like, Boar's deck curves out at 4, and the 4 is Vendetta, which is technically a 0. So actually his deck curves out at 3. And look at his hand. There is so much value in this deck. It's absolutely absurd.
What a silly what a silly deck, right?
I know, it's great.
He's not even played the two what's the word? The 2 Dragon Swords yet. He's got in his hand, which can then also just completely open up the game in a different direction.
Yeah. He hasn't even played his Hanar, which is another one of the biggest value generators in the entire deck.
BoarControl can't believe it.
My hand is too full.
Does get a prime, loses the Hanar though. He only had 1 secret left remaining to activate that, which is the second plagiarize.
I think I'll
And so
take
it
that
might
trade.
not be the end of the world. Yeah, I'll probably trade my Hanar for a Solarium Prime. Yeah, Boar's hand is starting to get slow, though. That's the problem. Your deck starts out very, very fast and very low on value, and then ends the game extremely high on value, but a lot of the time very slow. And Boar's hit that position without really gaining a significant advantage in the game state. So getting all of these cards out of his hand might actually just become the biggest problem right now.
Also, this Prime, not really great against exactly Winged Guardian, as a lot of things can go wrong. But I think, most importantly, Seiko just got rid of it, right? That was just priority. The Winged Guardian, bit of a pain. Get it gone by any means necessary, then continue with the game. Oh. Xavier?
Wait, really? You want more value, Boar? So Boar's pretty much just committed to burning the rest of his deck at this point, it looks like. That's fine. Accept that. Oh, instant gyrocopters.
Oh, I've got to keep one eye on the game and one eye on BoarControl's camera.
Yeah.
It is very amusing, because it's not happening to me. That's why I'm laughing right now.
Dude, the insta gyrocopter. Amazing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Not only was it the Insta Smack Prime into Power of Creation gyrocopters.
What to do?
Oh.
What to do?
Is there a good way for him to get through this, though? Is double arcane missiles the way forward?
Yeah.
Over just sacking these gyrocopters? Okay. Halfway between both.
Yeah, I like this. My initial instinct was like you just trade both and then rip the missiles, but yeah, I think you can just trade one and then rip the missiles, and then there's a pretty good chance you just get to keep a Wind Fury Yeti at the end of the turn, which is pretty great.
That's it. It's a massive threat. So not only is Solarian a huge deal on board, but now the Gyrocopter is a huge problem as well. So I do like at least trying to keep hold of one.
Caladan does not work the way you would like it to in this scenario. It looks like Boar didn't actually know and just was like, yeah, well, none of the other ones work.
Also, it could have been an option to just say, well, I need to kill this Gyrocopter.
That's fair, actually, yeah.
It does work. Like, the card's Battlecry does factually work, just on one mission.
Yeah.
Oof. Words I never thought I would say is that Boar's deck that curves out to a maximum of 3 mana was just too slow and had too much mana in hand to play.
It was just too greedy. He needs to cut some of the value out of this deck for some tempo options, I think. That's the problem that he's got right now. But yeah, seriously, I'm trying to, like, piece back where all of those cards came from and, like, how many of them were truly random versus how many were chosen. Because the Power of Creation was chosen, right?
Correct.
Like Ancestral Guardian, where did that was Pharaoh Cat, right?
Pharaoh Cat.
The Wing Guardian was Pharaoh Cat as well, so there's no option over that. So yeah, I guess all things considered, Boar was just missing like some shot bots and candle takers and so on off of his Pharaoh Cats just to be able to actually play out a slightly smoother curve from his hand, and sort of accidentally ended up with a hand as value packed as it ended up being. There wasn't really a lot he could have done about it.
And you look at that, and we saw that play dries. One of them only got a Solarian, right? Because his hand was full. So even the play dries only got 1 card, which is the minimum of that play dries can get. But Seiko is fighting back, and that's the important thing coming out of the back of that game. He does have his Druid and his Priest left, but we are going to see more of this Rogue. And BoarControl look a little bit wound up over that last game, but still, that's not going to shake him too much. He's going to be moving on to this game now. Rogue, once again, of course, for the Boar, and Seiko going to be on this Druid. And just a reminder, if you didn't catch some of the games earlier, this Druid is just the exotic Mount Seller, but no survival of the fittest and no Malygos. It's just a Mount Seller sort of a kind of spell Druid knocking around there, but mainly Guardian Animals, Mount Seller, and honestly, the star of the show, Speaker Ghidra.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I've seen Boar play this matchup on his stream from both sides. I saw him play it as the Rogue. I was like, wow, this matchup is absolutely free as Rogue. Like, this is unlosable from the Rogue side. And then he played it as Druid. I was like, wow, this matchup is unlosable from the Druid side. So I'm not really sure what that tells us about anything, except maybe BoarControl is a pretty good player, which I think is something we knew already. But I do think key to victory from the Rogue side is that Questing Adventurer / Edwin Van Cleef, which we see Boar quite rightly keeping in his opening hand.
Right, I was going to ask you, like, at least, I mean, guess what? The Druid can do big Druid things and win games, yes. But from the Rogue side, is it just all in on those big single threats that you can drop down? Because does the actual value side of Rogue, of this deck, actually do work against Druid? Or is it really just the mega threats?
No, absolutely not. The value side of the deck just is way too slow. It's the big threats and the Blackjack Stunners. Those are the good cards in your deck, really, in this matchup. You can kind of build like a nice Bloodfen Rap-3 board in the early game and Blackjack Stunner your way to victory. That does work too, but really it's Questing Adventurers and Edwin Van Cleef. Those are just the big tools that you're looking for.
Would you actually like to see a play dries this turn? Or do you think he couldn't go for the Cult Neophyte to try and block out the Overgrowth?
Looks like a Cult Neophyte turn to me. For exactly that reason, yes.
Does open up the potential for the Questing Shadow Step the Neophyte as well. If he wants to go for it. Not saying he will, depends on the next draw or so. There's definitely a lot to consider already, but I would expect nothing less from a Max Curve 3 deck on turn 3.
So I guess the other option is like you plagiarize, you get the ramp card yourself, you ramp yourself, you then have more mana to make a giant questing, perhaps before your opponent can actually cash out, make the giant threat themselves. There's also the consideration that Seiko plays Wild Growth, which not everyone does, which is Cult Neophyte, perfect Wild Growth turn now for Seiko, which is not necessarily something you'll always be considering on ladder. And it is what's going to end up happening here to Boar.
Give me a quest.
He's going to go for the quest in the Shadow Step. I think he's decided after seeing that ramp, that level of ramp, He needs to go sooner rather than later.
Absolutely got to get on with this one. Ah, yes, balanced innovate. That's what we like to see.
So, here's my question. If the questings are such a big threat, is this hero power, crystal power, moonfire? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Seiko already answered that.
1,000,000% of the time, Raven. Yes, it is.
But I think, honestly, as maybe a first-time viewer of the matchup, that's not strictly obvious because that was a lot of cheap spells used when there's a Mount Seller in hand for next turn, a coin and an innovate. But that does just display the respect that the Druid has to have for the questions in this one, right?
My experience in this matchup so far, like, that was Boar's push, and now it hasn't worked, and now he loses. Like, it's that simple. Yeah, I mean, Boar's face seems to bear that out exactly, right? Like, he knows that was his game, and it now has not worked, and he's lost.
Are we going to see a concede?
So
Okay.
many contradictions.
Boar is a serious competitor, Raven. He would never concede in a spot like this. Really?
Yeah, Seiko's got to take it just that little bit slower.
Greedy boy.
It's going to give Boar an overflow. Wait, isn't that like a perfect card to give this rogue?
Yes.
When you have 7 mana to spend to draw 5 cards when your hand contains 100 cards.
Sorry, I was being monumentally stupid there. You that was absolutely you can't just Mount Seller and give your opponent the entire Mount Seller combo that you've just played. Like that's obviously nonsense.
Mount Seller, innovate, coin. You're like, what? Yeah, that was just a good play. Me and Soto were quite slow, and we apologize. But most importantly, BoarControl is managing to make a board, though, which means there is some level of threat, even though we can see the Mount Seller turn and that second crystal power going to get some work done. BoarControl's still making a good go of it.
This is the kind of board I was talking about, where it's just kind of like a Bloodfen Raptory board, and then you Blackjack Stunner your way to victory, but that's a very different dynamic against the Mount Seller list. Against the Mount Seller list, this doesn't work out. This is the benefit of Mount Seller, is that it can pick apart aggro decks that look like this, right? Like, this looks like a Demon Hunter board, for example, right?
Yes.
Which is the kind of thing that you can just play Mount Seller and pick apart.
And you'd even argue just an absolute, maybe one of the best burn cards for Seiko there is an Overgrowth at this point in the game.
Yep.
And here we go.
Nature speaks through us.
Getting giddy.
Boar looked impressed with his opponent's Hearthstone turn.
That's a pretty solid turn. An 8-11, rush, Wind Fury. 4-6, cleave, rush. 5-4, draw 2 cards, rush.
All of this, and he didn't even play Dr. Broom this turn. Imagine how broken his turn would be if he had the Broom.
Wait. Wind Fury, rush, Wind Fury? Is that how it works?
Mega Wind Fury.
Sands of time run low.
No need to Ironbark anything here, I don't think. All you're doing is present a blood on a target that already exists. Yeah, completely agree.
I have a Raven special crazy suggestion there.
All right.
Would you ever use Bloom to heal one of your minions? Is that very silly? And I'm not even talking about this double vendetta specifically.
Lightning Bloom Crystal Power?
Yeah.
No. You have a Mount Seller in your hand. Like, I get where your head's at. Like, if this board could just win the game on its own if you really like went all in on it. But I mean, you're kind of winning already, regardless.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
If the whole turn happens to come down removing 1 or 2 of these minions, like, you're still winning that game anyway, right?
Quick ball. You can play overflow and not overdraw.
Nice. All right, I'm interested.
And then, I don't know, your deck BoarControl, I don't know what to do with it.
Muzzle their magic.
This is rough, isn't it?
He just plays minions into the cleave. Says your turn. Okay. See how this one works out for him?
Positioning was correct, though.
Yep.
I don't know whether it's funny or sad that even with this neophyte down, the Mount Cell turn's still just good.
I supply only the finest.
He's still got 2 innovates in his hand.
Why is that card allowed?
Here, two coins, whichever way you want to look at it. Like, these still work, is what I'm essentially trying to say.
Well, they're better, right? Than a coin would be, at least. The coin would cost 1.
Yeah, okay, I mean, he has a card in his hand which, under normal circumstances,
Correct.
is similar to the coin.
Main point. Summary. It's very silly.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to be so very clear with the semantic challenge from my casting partner. It's like back being casting with Admirable again.
Finally, the overflow gets played for BoarControl. That's Dragon's Horde there. Not sure really what he can get here and what is there. 5, 9, 10, 16, 15, 16? 16.
Does have prep secret stunner though.
Don't let the door hit you.
And now we talked about all the benefits of Seiko's build, you know, the crystal powers, even just having those Mount Cellar and a few more of the early tools to work with, the broomstick, of course. But this is also, you could argue, one of the drawbacks is he doesn't have the option to just go survival of the fittest. GG.
Yeah.
You know, when you do stick that board and can play survival, it's so powerful. It's so many stats, but that option just isn't there for Seiko. So just want to point out that the differences in the lists, although we are praising, you know, the broomstick, the Mount Cellar build that Seiko's running, there are things you do have to give up for this.
Yeah, it's possible that on that note as well, I kind of misspoke early, you know, when you were asking about whether the value train can ever come into effect.
Creatures.
We'll get to Boar in a second, but yeah, when I was talking about whether the value train can actually come into effect, I was kind of framing it around like a Malagos Druid or a Survival of the Fittest Druid, whereas, you know, this is a much less value-packed, threat-heavy version of the deck from Seiko, so maybe the time for the value can come into play. And yeah, Boar there was extremely excited by the potential that his opponent might give him an exotic Mount Cellar off the Plagiarize there. And Seiko did oblige and hand over the 5/8 to his opponent.
And does this surprise you, though? Because this is sort of breathed some life into BoarControl's hand, right? And it's maybe unlocked options. Could Seiko have effectively done that thing where you just pass and go face and just said, well, you've not got good enough answers to this board?
I think I would have just played Lake Thresher.
Okay.
And said go, and just use the Lake Thresher to deactivate the secret for any further blackjack stunners, and so that I didn't have to worry about it if I needed some pop-off turn in the future. And like we've been talking about, a Lake Thresher without Rush is a very bad card, so just giving that to your opponent is not seeming particularly powerful.
Secret passage. Coming down now for BoarControl, going to open up some options. Does have still 2 mana to play around with. That's a backstab as well, which is just another minion, and arguably, I'd say BoarControl's on the better end of the stick in terms of how good his beasts are, especially now.
Yes. I do want to be very clear as well. When I say, like, I would have in full knowledge that I could see that it was Plagiarize and not Dirty Tricks made that play. But Seiko's line, for example, if it was Dirty Tricks, which was just a straight-up 50-50, was amazing because he played 0 spells and generated a huge minion that Boar had to deal with. So it's not quite as simple as it might appear.
I do wonder if Seiko goes for draw here, because he has options for... He's not played both Nature Studies, right?
No, he's played one.
Okay. Just because Nature Studies into, you know, either a buff, some kind of extra damage, might just be enough to win the game. He's going to go for the trades first. He must have something else in mind. These minions are pretty good, though, because none of them really susceptible to Bog Beam. So he can't just, bug beam, do the trades and stuff, and then just overflow, because then that'll just heal them back up again.
Sands of time run low.
I'm wondering whether he even wants to cast the overflow here. Like, how much value does he actually have left?
Well, I also think that's the issue. I think he wants to just quickly draw his deck and end the game now, because he's running out of stuff. It just get into you, Sarah.
That's fair.
Did he even get to choose? I assume that was his pick, 'cause it was the best one.
Well, these Dragon Hordes are going to have to be pretty freaking popping from this point. Archmage Antonidas has a fraction of a percentage chance of doing something relevant this game.
Refarm every day of the week.
Ravarm has 0% chance of doing anything relevant at this point in the game, or any point of any game anyone has ever played.
I never lie, but I never tell the truth.
Okay.
BoarControl's like, yes, I'm playing mage again.
Yup.
Choose soon.
There's only one of those cards that's the good one, right? I couldn't imagine he was considering taking a polymorph there. So ended up with Plagiarize, Ice Barrier, Pack Tactics. So he is at functional 36, which is fine. There's only, 14, 15, 19 showing on the other
20
side.
20 hero power. Yep.
Got some time.
And his study's actually whiffed, right? Rising Wind's just not that relevant. Yeah, you can make 2 3/2s, but who cares? Like, definitely looking for a buff or some kind of damage buff or minion generation, just anything really that wasn't just a 3/2 and a 3/2.
I would suggest the one thing you don't do here is play a Sarah Unleashed.
Yeah, what? Is he just assuming a 4/12 gets him there? But if so, just play Mount Seller.
Right.
Or the Teacher's Pet. Or the Thrasher.
Right.
Or literally
So to explain
any card.
to anyone that's not following my logic here, Rogue now has lots of ways to access the card Frost Nova. So now you've created a position where 7 of your 9 remaining cards are your portals. So if there is a Frost Nova to be found from Boar, you lose the entirety of the remaining value of your deck sometimes. Like, 7 out of the 9 cards can just come out and just not have a board space to be developed onto.
And also, he's given BoarControl a Ysera, which we could see isn't going to be that impactful, but it's just he's near fatigue.
Yeah.
And I understand that him actually playing a Ysera is going to be quite hard.
Yeah.
But in the world where he does get to play it, it could flip the game around.
Yeah. None of these cards look an awful lot like Frost Nova to me. There are multiple 3-drops in play, though, which can create Doomsayers.
What did you say?
No!
Yes!
Don't let this Rafarm win a game! No! I refuse! This doesn't count. Only
This
Rafarms
100%
played for the
counts.
battle cry count. No. Lies.
Do you want to
Shut
know
up.
why this counts?
Why?
Because in this situation, if I was you and you were me, you'd be like, yeah, it counts 100%. So that's why it counts, because I know you would flip it on me, so... And this is also why, right? With the board full, these polls are just completely wasted. They do nothing.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about on the previous turn. Obviously, Frost Nova was the most dangerous thing to happen, because you don't also then get to cash in any damage. But yeah, he just lost a ton of value from his deck by playing the Ysera Unleashed on the previous turn. Whether it'll come down to that is still extremely unlikely, because Boar still looks very dead. But I do think it's unoptimal to play the Ysera Unleashed.
Well, I think for me, he had Teacher's Pet, right? And he gives BoarControl Teacher's Pet. Well, okay, BoarControl then has to play 5 mana making a taunt that you can easily punch through, right? And you still have a Ysera backup plan to just make another wave of dragons afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. The Teacher's Pet just pushed it for me, but regardless, BoarControl might be down to a refarm dream. Not that there's any card he could possibly get.
Lord Barov plus a 0 mana legendary that kills your own Lord Barov?
Close.
I give up.
And that is going to be the concede. This series is going all of the way to 2 here. Seiko and BoarControl. And that was a tough one, honestly. That was really tough to watch because BoarControl looked like the opening was there, but just the fact that the Seiko just got hold of the board, even though we sort of questioned a couple of the plays, BoarControl could just never get back on. And this is why, again, this is nothing aimed at BoarControl or anyone playing this rogue or anyone playing any deck, but this is where we start to see maybe some flaws in some decks. Maybe the lists need to change. Maybe the lineups need to change. Because the rogue, I get the idea, but very similar to Mage, I think there's a lot of refinement to be able to be done to get the deck to where it needs to be to actually beat the meta.
All I know, Raven, is that, as always, 100% of the Archvillain refarms that are played for their battle cry continue to lose games of Hearthstone, and that no one has ever won a game of Hearthstone after activating Archvillain refarm's battle cry.
Well, if we can go back in time and change our statements, then I'm going to have to make a long list tonight of all the things I want to change that I've said in the past.
Oh, I'm sure that list is very long, right?
It is. Seiko there, going to be on his priest for this one, and yes, that is another broomstick. But just as we get into this game, it is a point I wanted to talk about, and I talked a lot at the start of the expansion, was people are making the best deck, or the best version of the archetype, but I feel like a lot of that in the first few days has no relevance to the meta, right? You're not considering what is being played by other people. You're just like, in isolation, this is the most powerful version. It's like, right, but tech cards exist that we've seen become very, very powerful. And I think that's the next step of this expansion when we go into week 2 and week 3 is actually, okay, what are people playing? How do I need to alter my lists to beat that? And that's what we're going to see in the future.
This hand, by the way, from Seiko? Are you kidding me? Disciple of Galakron, Cleric of Scales, double Raised Dead Fate Weaver. Like, this hand fully invokes Galakron, draws all the spells you want from your deck, and then discounts them all already.
Honestly,
just based on what he has.
In my experience on ladder, so this is just the average priest game. Because I lose to priest a lot. And this is how. What's the pick here, though? 'Cause these are all, I think, very good options.
Yeah, I mean, Renew is a pretty great card, but I think Apotheosis in general is pretty fantastic. Although maybe against Rogue, you don't want to be stacking minions for Blackjack Stunner. So maybe it's just Renew in this scenario. I'm not sure. Of course, with the hotfix that came in, the old Renew Jackson is not possible anymore. You can't renew into renew to be able to pull yourself back up if you do start falling behind in health total. But it's still an incredibly good card.
Is that a saying? Or have you just made that up?
Renew Jackson?
Yeah.
That's not mine. I wouldn't claim that one.
Oh, that is too good to claim as a lie. But that is the first time I've heard it, and it did tickle me. Renew Jackson. People are clever.
Yeah.
Also here, funnily enough. Not... Okay. Are you surprised the Raised Dead was played there?
No.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you play the Raised Dead here?
I just wondered whether you'd want to give Raised Dead potentially to your opponent.
Oh, sure, but again, like, so that's a problem you do run into when you're playing against this deck. Like, you almost have to, because it's Dirty Tricks or Plagiarize, right? Like,
Yes.
It's always going to get procced when you, like, cast a spell. So you can't just, not play spells for the entire game. You can't, unless your hand actually has a reasonable play, which is play a minion pass, and then you can test Plagiarize that way. You kind of just have to commit to your line, right? Like, a lot of the time, you just have to do your powerful thing and just trust that it's more powerful for you than it is for the opponent.
I think the literal only reason I asked was because it was exactly Raised Dead, which I feel in Rogue would be insane.
It
Right?
would, yeah.
It's
It absolutely
zero
would.
mana. You can potentially make more Quest Adventurers or
Yep.
whatever to proc Quest Adventurers even more. It just seems
Yep.
like an insane card. But you are right. You can't obviously just step back and go, well, I'm just not going to play the game because my opponent has a secret. It's
Right.
just, I wanted to ask just because it was Raised Dead.
I wonder.
Well, you can see how this is played out, as you mentioned, all the way back
Sorry.
when from the opening hand. This is
It's
a pretty
so
powerful
dumb,
hand.
right? It's so dumb. This entire hand is just the contents of what he had in his opening hand when I was freaking out about it. He just had double Raised Dead and a couple of 1-drops, and it's turned into this. Like, it's absurd.
What do you think about this potential play? It looks like Seiko's looking for a Breath of the Infinite, potentially, but that just looks like too good of a Fate Weaver. Because he gets 2 more minions out of this.
Boar, were you not listening to me 4 turns ago? I told you how disgusting his hand was. I don't know why you seem so surprised now. Yeah, I completely agree. This is just always a Fate Weaver turn. From where I was sat, I'm just not entirely sure what Seiko was planning long term there, but certainly things that he could be planning with the quality of his hand. He can really set up any 2, 3, 4 turn game plan he wants to, because the quality of his hand is as such.
And don't get me wrong, it is worth just considering, right? Like that's the key thing. It's just worth thinking, okay, well, I think it was more just going, okay, well, if I play this, and some players do that where they hover the card just to like solidify it in their mind. They're like, okay, if I play Breath of the Infinite, this happens, and I do this and this. So yeah, I was just worried because although we didn't end up doing it, of course, I just think Fate Weaver, as you can see displayed now, was so good that you almost do it regardless of what your opponent has done.
As a general rule, if the play you're going to make is going to make your opponent react the way BoarControl just did, you should probably make it.
Yep. Trick's number 2 of the game, so it just means BoarControl is potentially going to be able to cycle a little bit more, but you can see the shake of the head because it's less for BoarControl. He's less upset about what's on board and more about what's in it, potentially his opponent's hand, and that's a whole lot of cards for not a whole lot of mana. Is now the time to just drop an Apotheosis, do you think, just because you can? And it sounds like a very shoddy argument to do something, but you understand my point.
I do, yeah. You're far enough ahead that if you get Blackjack Stunned, it's not the end of the world, is what you're saying, right?
Right.
Which I do take that point.
And what else does the turn look like as well, right? Like, what's the other turn that isn't Apotheosis X here? Maybe even just Karsh, yeah. I think I like this. Just win on board. It's not like, although BoarControl has access to a ton of resources and options most turns, it's not endless removal, right? It's not like a control deck a lot of the time. It's just a lot of value.
So Boar with the eternal question of whether or not he needs to prep his passage this turn.
You get 1 Sol, and that was it.
What are you talking about?
Nothing at all. Cult
Prepping a
Neophyte.
passage is entirely legitimate.
It does seem a bit excessive since it's only it's a 2 mana reduction for a 1 mana spell. He's going to go for the evil miscreant at least to start off for the lackeys.
I think because the hand doesn't have a secret in it, like if there was a secret in the hand, you prep the secret and then just passage and look for Blackjack Stunners and Shadow Steps that way, which I think is slightly unlikely because you already have 1 Shadow Step in your hand. But yeah, I think it's part of the power of what Seiko's play did is that it was multiple Blackjack Stunner targets, right? Like Kaj is also a Blackjack Stunner target.
Yeah, would have been good if he could pull it off, but he does just get rid of the Apotheosis, which I think is priority number 1. The Karsh doesn't have anything too wild inside, right? It's more of an annoyance than an actual threat. It's not like Karsh, a massive dragon or anything.
That is now a fully invoked Galacroft.
On turn 6. Also, the Devout Pupil isn't a bad pickup in any respect as well. Just it's more commonly seen in the Paladin lists, but just a very strong card in Priest. It is the dual class as well, so you can play it here. But mainly, it's just another awkward threat to deal with. Divine Shield and Taunt.
Yeah. Wow. Or skips prepping his passage. Brave man indeed. But I guess with the Edwin in his hand, he wants to hold on to the preparation for as long as possible.
Luxol, if you want to cast the rest of today on your own, I'm okay with it. Okay? It's gonna get Blackjack Stunner and a
I'm the one
Shadow...
getting fired here, Raven. You're on your own.
Shadow Step is there, so he did get it off, and also it's Ganling, right? That's that card.
Gandling, yeah.
Yeah, a card I think everyone went crazy about when it was previewed, and no one has actually played a game on ladder with, which does surprise me a little bit. I think people maybe overestimated or have not investigated as much as they maybe should with that card. Maybe we'll see more of it in the coming weeks, but for now, not the most played legendary in the world.
I've actually played with this card a lot in this deck. Like, literally, I think it's usually a pretty strong choice of Dragon's Horde because, you know, you generate a bunch of lackeys off Evil Miscreant, you have a bunch of 1/2s that, you know, generate value for you off Battlecry, then they transform into a 4/4. Like, it's actually a pretty strong card in this deck overall.
What is
And again, this this board state and hand state right now just really shows what this rogue can do and why it's really tough to judge the deck when you just look at the deck list, because Seiko had probably the best opening you could get with Priest. And don't get me wrong, I still think Seiko's in a great position, but BoarControl hasn't just lost, even though I feel like he kind of should have. You know what I mean? Like on paper, I feel he should have lost this game already, but he hasn't. And I think that's just a testament to not only the deck, but also BoarControl just sticking with it and playing it quite well.
Huh?
My hand is too full.
What was the Wave of Apathy for? You only needed to play 2 cards to burn Boar a card off the top, so it wasn't that. Both of the dirty tricks have gone, so it wasn't. Was that secret randomly generated?
Wait,
it was a real secret from the deck, right?
Wait, what? How much mana was the apathy?
Hmm?
Oh yeah, it wasn't needed to cast the pupil, right?
No.
Yeah, because it doesn't. Yeah. Oh, I don't know then. I was trying to work out with what was on board. Why?
Alright, I'm confused. It's late. I might be missing something really obvious. I apologize if I am, but that looked really weird to me.
Yep, I might be missing something obvious, and I blame Sol for trying to distract me while I'm working.
What is Elun's will?
Now things start to get a little bit more dicey with Seiko being able to card. Do you not like this?
Do you want that?
I think so.
Are you sure you want that? The minions in Seiko's hand, an exhaustive list. A 4/9 dragon taunt that adds a dragon to your hand at the end of your turn. End list.
So do you think you should have gone for the 4/4s instead?
I genuinely feel like Anlin is currently a downside for him.
He's got a lackey.
Particularly if he's just playing this lackey now.
Hey, it doesn't like this last turn or so feels a little bit sideways.
Yeah. Alright. Suddenly Boar's back in business. Be still, my beating heart. That is a rattle gore against Priest.
Up to no good.
Yep, terrible. Master Spell in Psycho's hand.
Yep.
Look at these lackeys, though.
I know, monstrous.
If this was a rogue card, oof. You could just rush it,
Yeah.
right? It will
can
cost
rush
him
it.
2 mana, of course, but...
Yeah, does cost him some value.
Does he just... Wait, does he just play the Neophyte instead?
Well, that's the thing. Let me just going to double check on Psycho's list as to whether or not he is playing a natural copy of Plague of Death, which I don't think he is. I think his list is pretty low curve, right? No, he is not. Okay, but still, like, one can get generated at this point, which, you know, Psycho's going into his 9 mana turn, and with a board this strong, it's very possible that Boar might have wanted to end the turn with the Cult Neophyte to play around some of those kind of options, but yeah, he just did not have that luxury anymore. Okay, that is a good draw for the 2 Gandlings that he has inside these minions. For sure, in the interest of balance, that is a very, very good minion.
And he can open them up as well, right? Because he can put in at least one of these cards into the 4/6, which is going to pop one open.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he'll start with Master Spell first?
No.
Well, it makes his dude cheaper, right?
It
So
does,
although you spend
but
4 mana on the Dispel, if you're not playing the dragon this turn anyway...
doesn't he want to just go fishing for the Soul Mirror, though? Is that not kind of the business?
I guess so, he would still have the mana, right? If that costs 2.
Now time.
He
Yeah.
has 7 left for Soul Mirror. Well, you're going to laugh when the Soul Mirror gets offered now, aren't you, Sol?
They come.
Yep.
Nah. No, I think Psycho's line is actually fine here because he can just take it and feel comfortable anyway, right? Like, actually, this 19 damage on the other side of the board is not a big deal because exactly, he just Wave of Apathies it,
Right.
generates a huge board himself, and then if he gets offered the Soul Mirror off the Cleric, great, he just has the Soul Mirror for the next turn then anyway, so problem solved. So actually, I think Psycho's line is perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's kind of like the worst case scenario. Yeah, Soul Mirror. Best case scenario, he just kills his opponent, right? So it's a pretty solid setup. It's always nice when you're playing, say, like the control, in the matchup, and you can become the aggressor. That's always when you know you're in a good spot.
Prep, plagiarize, Rattlegore, knowing your opponent probably just discovered Soul Mirror on the previous turn, so now you're just going to spend the entire game Soul Mirroring each other's Rattlegores?
I want Lucy plus the Soul Mirror. That's what I want to see this turn.
Crucially, Boar actually positioned well as well. It's not super impactful in this scenario because there are trades available to be made, but currently Psycho does not have board space to Soul Mirror the Rattlegore because of how Boar positioned his board. Absolutely correct to put his biggest, most threatening thing on the right-hand side. You see, Boar's pumped. He just got himself a Soul Mirror. He's excited now.
But Psycho also knows this. Psycho's giving him a Soul Mirror, right?
Yes.
Because both Dirty Tricks have been played.
Correct.
So he knows this for a fact. But now, I wonder, does he ever death, and then play the card?
What?
You do,
What
right?
happens if you Lucia here? Where do the plagiarize cards go and end up if you Lucia this turn?
I think he gets them, right? Because you
I think
swap
this works,
now.
right? Yeah, this is my instinct.
This puts him in his hand, and then you
Correct,
give him back.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, this line is the nuts. Oh my god, this is so good. This is fantastic. Any
Thank
misgivings I had about Psycho's play up until this point have all been forgiven because this play is nutty. Is it? Hang on, is it though?
Well, the problem is, does wait, hang on. How does this even work? Well, if BoarControl plays Mind Render now, what even happens?
There is, so it's kind of hard to explain. There's a guide on Aveline's Twitter, who is one of the most well-known freeze players that you can follow for this. Essentially, like, the swap happens once, then once more, then everything resolves, then it stops. But it's really hard to get your head around that until you actually see it happening.
They come.
I knew this rogue versus priest was a mistake.
Yeah, no, this matchup is impossible. Actively impossible. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But, like, you have to play the Mind Render? You can't just give the Mind Render back to your opponent again, can you? Like, you just have to do this.
Yeah, I think you have to play it, right? Or it's too good.
So...
Well, at least someone did the good thing and the Mind Render's dead.
There we go.
Right? Wait.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. It's weird, right? That's what I say. It's kind of hard to explain what happens until you actually see it happen, but there you go. You just saw it happen.
Yeah, it all happens at the same time would be the way I would explain it. I suppose.
Yeah,
Good
fair enough.
study session.
Conjur's calling. Pretty big deal with Rattlecore. That is a 2 9-drops.
Yep, and a 6-6.
Wait, who's got whose hand now? Can we just get these ball traits swapped?
Hunter's Calling's too juicy, right?
It has to be, because you can play the Neophyte as well, right?
Oh, he wants to go face instead. Okay, I see what the debate was. Oh, no, not like this. Not like this. So now there's the other effect resolving, and now Boar is back to his deck and his hand, and everything is now resolved at this point.
He needs to... I don't even know anymore. I don't know why I'm talking, Sol. I've got no clue what's going on, I'll be honest. Who's playing it? I've lost count of who's who. Is this even Seiko versus BoarControl anymore, or are we on a different match? I don't even know. So priority 1, that's Domu's dead. No, yep, Boar gets to conjure his Rattlecore.
The Rattlecore pop-off. It's never going to get old.
I never lie, but I never tell the truth.
I wish there was a... You know what Team 5 should do? A behind the scenes of the voice actors for this, shouldn't they?
Sure,
Wait.
I guess.
Oh.
I guess.
Okay.
I mean,
It confused me
it's
that it popped
another
up
4-4?
on the right.
Yeah. Like, there's no illusion that Boar didn't know that was going to happen because it already happened to his Hanar before he played the Edwin Van Cleef, so it would be absurd for him not to realize that was going to be the outcome. I think he just decided he needed another 4-4.
I think he just wants this game to end.
I don't. I want this game to go on forever. I'm having a good time right now. Luckily, the priest does not have 1 damage because they're a priest, so of course they don't.
Still looking pretty solid overall. Not so much because, yes, of course, Psycho's putting down to 1, but BoarControl has no real way to make up 30, right? Like, that's the problem. BoarControl's not even close. There's not even, oh, well, what if he draws this and gets an out into this and that and that? Well, no, he's got to make up that much damage.
It was Secret Passage off the top. Secret Passage drew essentially the entire remainder of Backstab, Vendetta, double questing. So, like, that was an absurd pop-off turn, which I'm not sure if it creates a full board clear, but I think it does, right? Like, if a Backstab and a Vendetta goes into the Skeletal Dragon, then the trades can clear up the rest of the board and leave Giant Questing Adventurer behind on the other side as well, and you still have the remainder of your Rattlegore, but there's still the Rattlegore on the other side of the board that needs to be contested with, which I don't think Boar had any way to... Look, I'm still trying to analyze this matchup, all right, Raven? Don't give me that face. It's my job, and I'm going to do it well, damn it.
Well, first, congratulations to Psycho for winning the match. BoarControl is done, and the Rogue did seem to suffer a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I can see the idea behind the deck, and I get why it's not only impressive but kind of just cool to watch. I can't decide whether I want this deck to be successful or not. So I don't know whether I actually want to continue casting it or not, especially against Priest, where everything goes truly out of the window. But it was fun to watch, but maybe this needs to be refined a little bit in respect of the meta going forward. But Seiko takes the win, but we are going to go to a break while we set up our final match of the day. We're going to give Seiko some time just to get ready. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the final match, the Hearthstone